So let's talk about a topic which I feel like hasn't been really touched base upon recently, and I kind of wanted to add upon this theory that has been floating around for quite some time now, as of the turn of the century. From, I would say, 2001 onwards, it has been heavily proposed and recently has garnered more traction just due to the fact that significant figures in the public sector have just contributed to the fact that this very theory could be possible. And the theory I wanted to talk about is the simulation theory, and how recently I just kind of noticed how it could definitely be even more feasible at this point in time. And reason being is simple. There are two new not technologies in the sense, but two new software, I would say, that have been developed by two significant companies, NVIDIA and AMD. NVIDIA has developed DLSS technology, and AMD is in the works right now working on Fidelity FX. Now, what are these two new technologies that are being developed? Well, it's basically AI upscaling technology. It helps with the resolution on certain images, and in particular the resolution in video games, and upscales them. So it takes a significant load off the actual horsepower that is needed to drive these games. In terms of trying to output 4K, it's very demanding and very taxing on dedicated hardware, which is why we haven't seen true 4K gaming out in the mainstream to everybody in abundance, because it's just way too taxing on consumer grade hardware that is out there. It could definitely be achieved on high-end rigs with you could have a multi GPU setup, and it's just something that hasn't been easily done or easily achievable by just the vast majority of people out there, because it's pretty expensive to get a video card which can actually sustain a playable frame rate at 4K resolution. So what NVIDIA and AMD have tried to come up with a solution in order to mitigate this problem and help out those individuals who can't really obtain these super high-end expensive graphics cards, is try to deal with it from a software perspective. So they both developed their own respective technologies, DLSS being on its 2.0 stage at this point. 1.0 could arguably could be argued to have been a kind of flop in a sense. Although lots of people want to see it as that way, I believe it was the right way of going about things. It was the first step into really diving into something that hasn't really been done before, in terms of trying to take off the extreme load that it takes for a graphics card to drive this resolution. Nowadays, since lots of people are now getting 4K displays and are trying to really push these pixels as much as they can, and it's just not everybody is able to do it. So they tried to tackle it from a different perspective. Hey, let's do it from AI upscaling and some new software development. So that's what they did. And DLSS 1.0 did not turn out as exciting as people were hyping it up to be. It was okay, but it kind of made things worse in a couple scenes, and it didn't really achieve what it set out to do. However, DLSS 2.0 definitely delivers on what 1.0 should have delivered upon, and that is delivering crisp images in upscaled 4K resolution from a very, very low outputted resolution from the dedicated hardware. And it really pushed boundaries, and it really pushed the limits of what some people thought could have been achieved with this dedicated software developed technology. And especially in its 2.0, it is now a lot more accessible. So now, why did I want to discuss the simulation theory, and why the hell did I just throw that out in the beginning of the video? Well, I wanted to give you the first bit of why I wanted to talk about it in form of explaining the technologies which are being developed and are already out there. So, before, the simulation theory was kind of put out there in a sense that, hey, everyone in existence and everything that is out there and everything that is ever in present time right now is all a fully rendered computer simulation. However, not many people think this is a feasible task, just solely because of how much processing power it actually requires and whether or not it's actually worth it to run this simulation in real time, if those who are actually running the simulation are even capable of doing it in the first place. So, considering this, many individuals have considered that this is a big issue to tackle. And some people have actually wanted to understand how much it would actually take to drive a fully functional artificial universe. So they went out, and a bunch of random people wanted to test out and see whether or not it's actually kind of feasible, and not conspired, but came up with a bunch of theories in regards to how much graphical horsepower, all of these things to really kind of make an artificially simulated universe. And it turns out it's really demanding. It's almost impossible, but it's definitely not impossible. Just almost impossible. However, recently I started to notice that since it's such a demanding task to actually run something as complex as the human mind and the universe itself, along with everything in it, all its complexities and its many, many laws and lots of things that we have yet to even discover or understand, the whole aspect of trying to run an upscaled image from its true image kind of popped up into my head and kind of makes sense to a certain extent, because think about it. If we are currently developing technology that is making things easier to render and have less of a detrimental effect on the user's dedicated hardware, from a software perspective, it makes total sense that we follow in the footsteps of what our potential people who created our simulation have done so, and now we're just replicating what they're doing just within the simulation, if that makes any sense. So if you think about it in a sense, we could technically be a very, very low outputted resolution image, and we're all artificially scaled up to a much higher resolution. So therefore, the graphical demands on the aliens hardware, or whoever is actually running us in simulation form, is not heavily taxed. So therefore, the amount of power and the amount of processing power that it actually would take to run our artificial simulation is not that devastating on their technology, meaning it's completely feasible now for an artificial simulation to take place, whether it be how I stated in terms of everything being rendered in real time, or just certain aspects being rendered and other things not being rendered. It does make sense to me in that respect, now that these AI upscaling technologies are out there, because of lots of the adoption rate for 4K has definitely grown. So they want to see these things in a crisp texture, and the hardware dedicated to push that out is just too damn hard. It's too damn hard for the hardware. So AI upscaling is definitely helping, and using that AI upscaling in real life to run the simulation, for sure makes sense. So I want some opinions, people in the comment section below, to really tell me what they think about this and whether or not it actually makes sense to you, and whether or not I actually sound like an idiot, or if somebody else thought about this as well. Because if somebody else thought about this as well, please let me know, as that is something I definitely did not see anyone else talk about from what I have looked at bunch of YouTube videos, a lot of Reddit posts. No one has really touched base upon this, especially this whole DLSS and Fidelity FX and how it could be used in the simulation theory. And in my opinion, reinforces the simulations theory and makes it a little bit more feasible. Anyways, that's enough rambling for me. I hope I didn't bore you all, and I hope some of the things that I was talking and rambling about actually make sense and I didn't waste any of your time. So thank you for sticking around. Please drop a like on the video, and if you want to see more discussions like this, please subscribe and stay tuned for more. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.